working again here. So,
Okay.
Holland, pronounce your last name for me so I don't screw it up.
Van de Nieuwenhof.
Van de Nieuwenhof. All right, sir.
Yes, sir.
And we just started recording here on Blog TV. Just had a few problems. That seems like Homeland Security is real interested in what we do on this show. But that's it's like I said, it's always been against this whole Southern poverty law thing. You know, they listed me, you know, right there after Oklahoma City as the militia. They just don't tell you that I started it in the governor's office, sir.
Mm-hmm. Well, the militia being a legitimate outgrowth of the normal function of government, it's unfortunate that the two have now become at odds over the current direction of this republic. But 100 years ago, there was certainly nothing wrong with being part of the militia.
And that still may be the answer today, but you know, they're certainly afraid. I said anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people. They go after the farmers first, the intelligentsia next, and the veterans and law enforcement that are still loyal to the old regime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happening today, isn't it, with Oath Keepers and everything else that's going on. But this film that you did on Oklahoma City, A Noble Lie. It's taken a long time to get to the facts. I've interviewed a number of the same people that you interviewed. General Ben Parton.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the lady that had saw them planting the plastique in the basement.
Jane Graham, yes.
Yes, Jane Graham. Yes, sir. And you've talked to all those people.
Mm-hmm. Many of them are friends of mine.
Charles Key.
Have become. Yes. Done a lot of good work with Charles Key. Still Representative Charles Key. He started the Oklahoma Bombing Investigation Committee.
I believe I still have one of his books here, one of the investigations that he did.
Excellent. That's the only copy of that book that will be made, so you better hold on to that.
I will certainly do that. Now, this preceded 9/11, but their plan was the same using the Oklahoma City federal building as it was with the 9/11, the World Trade Center attack. Would you agree with that? I mean, they used this to start this whole terrorism act.
Yeah. But the parallels are striking. I mean, in both cases you have legislation being introduced after the attack in the immediate aftermath that never would have been passed before. All of this legislation deals with threatening and cutting off more of our freedoms. In the case of the Oklahoma City bombing, you had the Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996, which eviscerated the Bill of Rights, federalized the police force, led to the more militarization of the police. And then after 9/11, you have the USA Patriot Act, which was written before the bombing, because it was 800 pages long, and of course, once again, drastically reduces our freedoms and classifies any kind of protest against the government as possible terrorist activity.
Were they that scared? I've often asked myself, now you've been reading my magazine for a long time. It's really been hard for me to understand. I started the militias in New Mexico after what happened at Waco. I mean, I just couldn't understand why the police, the sheriff, the Texas Rangers didn't come in to help those people. I couldn't understand it. So I started the militias in New Mexico and advertised it. But why would I get so attacked by Southern poverty law, by the ADL? I was listed in ADL as armed and dangerous. I was listed by Southern poverty law and their false patriots, and they also attacked the presidential candidate I was working with at the time, Charles Collins. Why would they do that? What kind of danger did I present? And the militias in New Mexico involved about 20 people that who met in the governor's office and talked to him about it. So what was the threat there?
It wasn't the actual threat; it was the need for a threat, Mr. Douglas. Like all functions of government, they need to manufacture these threats to justify their own existence and to magnify the fear, introducing fear. Unless
we're allowed more power, these evil people, these country living people, these 20 guys with guns who meet every other week, they're the real threat, not the overarching power, the police state stripping away our constitutional freedoms one by one. So it's like all things. They just magnify the threat to justify their own agenda.
Created a threat where there was none. I mean, the FBI even listed me in a little booklet that came out of Arizona here called Guide to Right-Wing Extremists. I made 2 phone calls, one to the Governor Gary Johnson, and he told me not to worry about it. And the second one was to the chief of the state police in New Mexico. He told me not to worry about it. I said, well, it's easy for you guys to say. I think somebody's trying to get me killed here. And they said, well, the governor recalled all those booklets from New Mexico. So I was safe for a while. But
well, Gary Johnson's a good man. Recently, we were provided information that was leaked from the Department of Homeland Security. I have to give credit to Operation Diffuse for doing good work on this. Captain Bleish and John Bush out of Texas, they're good friends of mine. They gave us the information that listed one of our websites as being a website for domestic terrorists. This is the website that sells copies of Final Report of the Oklahoma Bombing Investigation Committee at Oklahoma City Bombing Truth. .com, and now that website is listed as a extremist terrorism website, and all we do is sell books asking questions about the Oklahoma City bombing, and not very many books, mind you. In fact, I can't remember the last time one was sold, but that's basically what it is in this country now. Dissent is terrorism, and with the passage of NDAA, the Citizen Detainment Act, the Enabling Acts of 2012, the government now has the power to snatch people on this list, like myself and others and you, snatch them off the streets and put them in a military brig and never have any recourse to the civil justice system or habeas corpus. That, my friends, is the very definition of tyranny. We have crossed the line.
I said the same thing in the latest article I'm working on. They've been trying to demonize me as a right-wing radical, as a racist, as an anti-Semite, or whatever other anti-government, a tax protester. So many names that they got. I'm just one guy. I've referred to myself as a canary in a coal mine. I've said they're going to come after me, but if they come after me, they're going to be coming. They're going to come after you next.
Exactly. I mean, the fact is, if someone does get snatched up off the streets, who really out there is going to be brave enough to go out there and protest it? Because guess what? You're putting yourself on that list next. This is a very dangerous line.
Yes, it is. And people used to ask me when I was publishing The Free American, I'd have Lynn Meredith or Irwin Schiff on, and they'd ask me, well, Clay, are they telling us the truth? I said, well, yeah, they're telling you the truth, but it's a little like going to Al Capone and saying, hey, Al, I've learned extortion's not legal and I ain't doing it no more. So when Al sends his boys to smash your kneecaps, and the IRS comes in to investigate you if you start asking questions. That's what they're coming after you because you're asking questions about this bombing. What kind? Now the name of the film is A Noble Lie, and what kind of conclusions are you coming to in this film?
Well, a noble lie refers from Plato's Republic, a noble lie being a myth or untruth told by the elites to preserve social harmony or the position of that elite. It's a lie told for the so-called greater good. In the case of Oklahoma City, in the case of A Noble Lie, our film documentary, the first film documentary to ever compile all this evidence into one viewable package, is that the official story is a cruel myth from start to finish. None of it holds up under the weight of water, under the weight of scrutiny, and that this bombing was used as a tool to help coerce the American people into doing things they would not have done before the bombing, which may lead one as to conclusions as to actually carried it out. What we can prove without any kind of detraction is that the official story is a myth, that there were bombs placed inside the building. The Air Force proved this themselves with the famous Eglin Air Force test study, where they actually tested the hypothesis of the Oklahoma City bombing and found out it was impossible for a truck bomb to do that damage to the building. that there were federal agents recovering documents from the scene while they were holding back rescuers from rescuing people dying inside the building. We have police officers interviewed. We have all kinds of experts, veterans, private investigators, first responders, first-hand eyewitnesses. We prove that the official story is a noble lie.
I published Timothy McVeigh's death certificate in the Free American magazine.
Mm-hmm.
They listed his employer as the U.S. government, as the United States Army.
Yes, this is very significant because it didn't. That their death certificate did not ask whether he was a veteran or not. It asked for his occupation. And although the fact that Tim McVeigh had been out of the Army for 9 years at that point, had several different jobs, it listed his occupation as soldier and his employer as U.S. Army. And that correlates with what we know to be true. McVeigh told his first set of lawyers, who recused themselves shortly after this piece of knowledge was imparted to them, told them that he had been recruited out of the National Guard to infiltrate neo-Nazi activities in the Army, that what he did at Oklahoma City was done under orders of the U.S. government. We have the affidavit from Terry Nichols, who talks about how McVeigh told him that he was working for the FBI in a sting operation. We have the letters from his family, McVeigh's family, where they talk about him being inducted into the special program while in the Special Forces, a covert program dealing with domestic intelligence. All of this indicates that whatever happened at Oklahoma City was the result of some kind of domestic terrorism sting operation.
Now, I also speculate, and I've got nothing other than an eyewitness report to question whether Timothy McVeigh was executed at all.
Well, that is still open for debate. I have personally interviewed a victim's family member who was allowed to view the execution on closed-circuit TV along with other victims, family members, and concerned parties during the execution. And she states that that man's chest was still moving when they wheeled him out of the room. Now, frankly, I really don't know, and it's unprovable to the fact that no autopsy was performed on the body afterwards, which is very unusual. Every executed federal prisoner is given an autopsy. That's standard procedure. No one's ever gotten out of that. Somehow McVeigh is able to wangle his way and not have a autopsy performed on his body after death. So, frankly, it's unprovable either way. And I really don't even want to think about it too much. I don't know if that guy's still walking around.
I speculated that he might have been sitting on a beach in Saudi Arabia with bin Laden, but I could have been wrong on that.
You never know. You never know.
Now, what progress did they make? Was this operation successful for them? I mean, they did stop the militia movement pretty well.
Yeah, well, from the intelligence and the information that we've uncovered, and I've spent several years investigating this bombing and interviewing first-hand witnesses. What it appears to be, at the very least, is that there was an operation spawned off PACCON, Patriot Conspiracy, an FBI operation to infiltrate every so-called dissident group in this country. This is called PACCON. We have some of the paperwork on this operation, and we have talked to people involved with the investigation, and it appears that there was going to be a sting operation. That truck may have been primed to explode perhaps the previous night when no one was in the building. That was going to be a big PR stunt, and that when they placed the explosives inside the building, they didn't know that it would actually detonate at 9 o'clock in the morning when it was full. What you have basically is that it was the FBI. It was the FBI's truck. It was the FBI's informant. It was the FBI's bomb. How they supposed to explain to the American people after the fact is that there was a tremendous foul-up, and their operation spun out of control and killed 168 Americans. It's not so much that, and this is how cover-ups work. It's not so much that every agent on the street is covering up the fact that the government blew up the building. They're covering up the fact that it was their operation, their truck, their informant, their bomb, and something went horribly wrong. That's how you get these people to go in along with the cover-up. It's in their interest to preserve their position and to preserve their paycheck and their benefits and so forth. This is the nature of institutions.
Now, this whole thing. Nobody's gone to jail for any of this except the patsies here. And I ran an article in the Free American about that BATF agent. Now, that BATF agent was standing outside across the street when the bombing happened. No BATF agent was in the building, was there? No BATF agents were killed that morning, were there?
That is true. The office of the ATF was the supposed target of the attack because of the date of April 19th, which was 2 years to the day after the Waco incident in 1993. April 19th, 1983. Then you have April 19th, 1995, when the building blows up in Oklahoma City. The office of the ATF was the supposed target, yet no agents were injured. And in fact, two agents propagated stories as to heroic stories that they were in the building. These have proven to be wrong. One agent said that he was in a free-falling elevator, and then he kicked his way out and rescued several people. We interview in this film the actual elevator mechanic who responded to the scene. His men opened up all the elevators on the scene. They all been frozen in place. Their safeties had frozen the elevators. There was no one in any of the elevators. In fact, the elevator that ATF agent was in, the doors had been crushed from the outside, and there was no way they could have gotten out. It was impossible. The other ATF agent, Luke Franey, claimed that he was knocked unconscious by the blast while he was in his office, that after an aborted helicopter rescue, which is false, by the way, there was never any attempted helicopter rescue. There was no need for any. He then crawled onto an outside ledge, crawled back into a window, kicked his way through 3 walls, and of course became a hero, saving several people. About a day after the bombing, Luke Franey was walking around with a bandage on his right hand, saying that he injured his hand trying to get out of the building. We have tape of Franey minutes after the bombing, standing outside the Murrah building, not covered in sheetrock dust, not looking disheveled, looking just fine, with a water bottle in one hand and shaking someone's hand with the other, not injured.
Now, there's also a report that came out in the Albuquerque Journal that BATF agent who was standing across the street, he recognized exactly what was in that truck. He knew there was an ANFO truck because the BATF had been working and practicing and investigating ANFO bombs at White Sands Missile Range the year before.
Yes, in 1994, the National Security Council authorized Operation Dipole Mite. This was recorded, this is documented by Newsweek, actually. And this was an operation in White Sands to make and detonate ammonium nitrate and fuel oil bombs. It's kind of peculiar because there was one incident in American history of an ANFO bomb being used. That was the Sterling Hall bombing at the University of Wisconsin in 1970. Since then, the IRA in Ireland had taken ANFO bombs to a whole new level, but they had not been used in this country. All of a sudden, in 1994, the ATF is blowing up ANFO bombs in the desert. Funny enough, it took them 3 tries to actually make one work. These bombing experts, it took 3 tries to make an ANFO truck bomb go off properly, which is kind of peculiar that Tim McVeigh, a total amateur, and Terry Nichols, who knew nothing about explosives, were able to pull off an ANFO truck bomb with 1 try with no prior experience at all. Anyways, one of those agents who was involved in the testing at White Sands, for some reason was in Oklahoma City. He wasn't stationed there, but he was in Oklahoma City the morning of the bombing. He was at the building and called into the ATF office that an ANFO truck bomb had been used, which is also peculiar because it was not an ANFO truck bomb, and there was no way he could have mistaken it for an ANFO truck bomb because there was no noxious fumes emanating from the truck bomb. That is the peculiar signature of ANFO. If this agent knew what an ANFO truck bomb was, he knew that what happened in Oklahoma City was not, because of the lack of nitric gas fumes. So what that tells us is that was the script laid down. I have interviewed people who were approached by federal law enforcement before the bombing to bomb a federal building with a Ryder truck full of ANFO, the same script run by government informants. They were trying this over and over, and someone finally took the bait.
This is the same agency we're talking about that attacked and killed 17-year-old children at Waco, and they've just been back in the news again. Now they're supplying weapons to drug dealers down in Mexico. I mean, boy, this agency really has a lot going for them, doesn't it? Are they? And I believe personally, based on my research over the last 25 years, that the BATF is simply It's just simply an interagency transfer. The BATF supplied the guns from the American stores to the CIA, who's posing as the drug dealers and the drug cartels.
Yes, we have Operation Fast and Furious, which is hitting the headlines now. That operation, which the ATF allowed thousands of guns to be shipped into Mexico and to go into the hands of drug cartels and be used in the drug war down there, that has killed 40,000 people. The Fast and Furious guns have killed 2,000 people, including 3 law enforcement agents in this country, over 150 Mexican soldiers, and 3 U.S. cops. So, and that's making the headlines right now. Operation Fast and Furious killed 2,000 people. What are we to think of Oklahoma City, run by the same people? It's likely that a similar operation killed 168 in 1995. And remember, Eric Holder, who is now Attorney General of the United States, responsible for enforcing the laws of the land, he was, back in 1995, he was in charge of managing the Oklahoma City investigation for the Justice Department, and he was directly in charge of the cover-up of the murder of Kenneth Trenchadue in federal custody. He was killed in a case of mistaken identity. We interviewed Jesse Trenchadue for the movie. In the movie, his interview, his information about the bombing has blown the lid off the SPLC and other actors involved. And so you have the same people involved, Eric Holder, same kind of operation. Why are we to find it so hard to believe that a similar operation 13 years ago killed 168, when right now it's in the news that Fast and Furious has killed 2,000 people?
And we don't even have it. We don't really know how many people have been killed down in Mexico that might have opposed these drug dealers. Now, Austin, are you there too?
Yes, I am.
All right. I don't mean to ignore you there. So.
Oh no, it's quite all right. Holland's been doing a fabulous job.
All right. You're the editor for this. How did you get involved in this, Austin? And what as an editor here, what's your opinion of Holland's work as a writer and producer here?
Well, I met these guys back in June of last year, and just through a friend of a friend, they were looking for an editor for their project, and I came into it really with an open mind. I've lived in Oklahoma City during the time of the bombing, and didn't know a whole lot about the specifics of the case. I mean, I knew that there was something terribly wrong and that we weren't being told the entire truth, but I had no idea the extent to which the corruption actually went. And so I came into this project, and they presented a tremendous amount of research and data that must have taken a decade to compile. And really it was my job to take all of that and put it into something that we felt like was a cohesive story that we could tell to the people, that would actually guide you through the entire event and show you exactly step by step who was involved, what crimes were committed, what's true, what isn't. And in my opinion, based on looking at all of this evidence, it is clearly obvious that the government was involved at some level, at least certain elements of the government. I mean, I'm not willing to say that the entire government knew about it, but obviously there were certain key people at the upper at the upper ranks that understood these things and put them in place. And then, of course, like Holland said, these government agencies went along with the cover-up because they didn't want to be embarrassed themselves. And so, I mean, after someone views this movie, if they still don't see the fact that the government was involved here, then they need to watch it again.
I've been called anti-government for many, many years, among other things. And, I got to thinking about it. Maybe they're right. I mean, if our constitutional form of government has somehow been subverted and taken over by a communist regime somehow, the same way they did in Russia, the same way they did in Germany, the same way they've done in Israel, maybe I am anti-government, And what do you do? What do you do when you come to the realization? And I came to this realization, many, many years ago, before Oklahoma City. What do you do when you realize your government's the one that's doing this? I mean, what actions do we? Nobody's been prosecuted for killing Becky Weaver. Lynn Horiuchi never went to jail. Never was prosecuted for killing a mother holding her baby. Nobody's gone to jail for killing the 17 little children at Waco. And nobody's gone to jail for killing, other than Timothy McVeigh and a couple of patsies who had about as much to do with that as Lee Harvey Oswald did killing Kennedy. What do you do? How do you do? What do you do here, Holland? Maybe I should ask you that. I mean, I've been trying to respond for almost 25 years. Since I discovered that the CIA was bringing the drugs into this country under Operation Watchtower, since I started Free American, after what happened a week ago, I've been trying to do something. I've been trying to inform people. But now with this new military authorization, they could call me a belligerent and kick in my door right now, and nobody'd ever hear from me again. I mean, this is what happened in Argentina. It's what happened in Russia. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, you get to dread a knock on the door,
Well, what do we do? I think we do what we keep on been doing, what you've done, Mr. Douglas, for decades, exposing the truth. And we have every reason to believe that all this effort used to demonize those who still value our constitutional republic, it's because they do view us as an obstacle to their goal. This is an information war. We are trying to wake people up to let them know the truth. So we just keep on doing what we've been doing. We have talk radio. We write articles. We expose the agenda. And, it's working. For example, the underwear bomber, a couple of years ago when that teenage kid supposedly tried to light his crotch on fire and blow up that plane, when that kid was brought onto the plane by the well-dressed gentleman who told the ticket counter that he didn't need a passport and that we do this all the time, that was witnessed by a lawyer from Philadelphia named Kurt Haskell. Kurt Haskell knew that 9/11 was a lie, and because of that was paying attention to the issue and went forward with his information. And when Kurt Haskell showed up in court just a couple of weeks ago to testify, that's when all of a sudden the defendant pled guilty and there was no trial. That could have been much worse had there not been someone awake, witnessing the scene, realizing the importance of what was going on, and reporting it. The fact that we're waking people up and that people are aware of government false flag attacks is an impediment to their agenda. They're probably behind schedule right now.
I just want to address the issue. You were talking about the fact that some people trying to label you as anti-government, but or maybe even us, making this film, they might see it as anti-government. But when I look at our current administration, current government, I don't see a valid government. I see criminal gangsters that have taken over a valid government, and so therefore, if I'm against the criminals, I'm not anti-government. I'm pro-constitutional government. If we had a valid government, I'd be very pro-government, and I'm sure you would be as well. And so I think this is a mind game that the media and people in these government organizations try to play by saying that we're anti-government, that somehow that if we have a problem with what their criminal enterprises are up to, that somehow we're anti-American and we hate people and all this stuff. But that's just mind control. I don't buy into that at all.
Yeah, they use anti-Semite. Well, you're an anti-Semite if you point out that the Rothschilds were Jewish, and so was Marx and Lenin. If you point that out, that means you're anti-Semitic, and that's bullshit too. Because quite a few thousand Jews, Orthodox Jews, marched in New York City protesting the Zionist state of Israel, and in Israel, they're harassing and arresting Jews who were against the Zionist-run New World Order that resides there in Israel.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just another criminal element that has taken over, a legitimate organization like the Israeli government. And like I said, I mean, all Jews are not Zionists, just like not all Americans are part of the New World Order. I mean, we have to wake up and realize that it's never black and white, and that, you have criminals, and then you have people that, are trying to work against the criminals, and that's really the only truth.